Actually,
Yo-
there we go. All right, so we said our prayer. So I had a little bit of a busy week this week. I couldn't quite prepare quite as much as I usually do. So what I thought we could do, and there were no questions online.
Oh,
So
well,
what
we
I
submitted just a question right now
oh
that we
did
can
did
tell
you
you,
submit one
Sherry.
now? Hang on, let me look it up. You could just spell it to me, I guess. But all right, let's see. Oh, there it is. How do you know
Mama,
when your guardian angel is there to protect you? Can we name our angels? That's a great question. How do you know when your guardian angel is there to protect you? And can we name our angels? The first question is really easy to answer. Your angel is always with you. So you never have to worry about is my angel there or is my angel not there? Your guardian angel is always with you and he is there to protect you. Um, I saw a bumper sticker once that said, "Don't drive faster than your angel can fly." And I thought that was funny because it was telling people don't speed, don't drive too fast because it's dangerous. But the reality is you can't drive faster than your angel can fly. That doesn't mean you should speed. Not that that's an issue for you, Catalina and Rafaela, but um, but you never have to worry about being in a situation where your guardian angel is not with you because guardian angels don't have bodies. So even if you like you can't push them into a wall or you can't be in a room so small that they don't fit because they don't have bodies, so they don't have to worry about that. So isn't that nice that you have a being that's always there to protect you and look out for you. And they don't just protect you physically, they protect you spiritually too.
Oh,
Can we
that's
name
nice.
our angels? Yes, you can name your angels. You can go ahead and do that. I never named my angel because I kind of think my angel has a name already. And so out of respect to my angel, I was like, I don't know, like if I just start calling you Steve, are you are you gonna acknowledge that your name is Steve? I don't know. Maybe you will, maybe you won't. Yeah. So do you know the guardian angel prayer?
no.
That's a great prayer. Your parents can look it up for you if you want to start praying for your angel to protect you. That's a beautiful prayer. I used to say it every day when I was a kid, and I should continue to say it because our angels they do a lot for us, so they're always there.
Thank
Good
you,
question.
Luna.
Thanks for
Yeah.
asking it. Yeah. Does anybody else just have like spontaneous questions before I go into what I very loosely prepared? Catalina. Yes.
How come girls can't be priests?
How come girls can't be priests? Is it okay if I give a similar answer to the one? Because, okay, well, the reason girls can't be priests, we start with what Jesus did, right? So Jesus picked 12 people to be his priests, and he only
Mm.
picked men. So he had a lot of opportunities to choose women, and it doesn't seem like specifically for the priesthood that Jesus saw that as a role for women. It seems like he saw that as a role for men. Does that mean Jesus did not have roles for women? No, that's not true. And in fact, I myself, when I was discerning, I was actually a little bit jealous of women because women have an opportunity that men don't have, and it's a very beautiful one. Because when a woman enters into some form of consecrated life, be it in a community or as a hermitess or as a consecrated single person, she is entering into a marriage with Jesus, right? She can say that she is married to Jesus Christ. And I can't say that. That doesn't really work from the man's side, right? So I can say that I'm married to the church, and that's a very beautiful thing. Um,
Wait,
but and but I think that's a very distinct privilege that women have that men don't. So
what about, but why can't men marry Mary?
why can't men marry Mary?
Mm.
Well, Saint Joseph did, so I guess it's
Ya,
not
su esposo.
impossible.
Es imposible que Saint Mary tiene su esposo que es Saint Joseph. Sí.
Mm.
Good question.
Mama, look at this, Katy.
Ya, hay dos Katis. Yeah. Thank you, Apuna.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for your questions. Anybody else have a question?
Hmm. I had one in my head, but I forgot it.
Give someone else a turn.
Well, maybe
Yeah.
you can ask your guardian angel to remind you.
What
Um,
can I tell?
so at any point, feel free to interrupt with your questions. But one thing I did, so somebody sent me a YouTube video today with a question that was answered by someone, and I didn't like the answer. And so I got that video, and I got a couple other videos too, where people are just asking theological questions, and I thought we would just respond to them. And it's good because it helps a little bit with apologetics because we can practice what our response would be if we end up in a situation where we have to defend the faith. And it also just kind of helps us to understand our faith a little bit better. So I'm going to share these YouTube videos real quick. All right. Can you see my YouTube page? All right. I'm going to hit play then. Hopefully you'll be able to hear it.
Why would you choose to worship a creator God who forbade man to actually eat from the tree of knowledge, one which you have obviously eaten from because you're a rather knowledgeable man? Why would you choose to worship this sort of deity who would have kept you dumb?
That's a very good question. I'll tell you why it's a good question. I noticed it was asked originally by a snake.
Would be of knowledge. It keeps you down.
It's not implying any offense at all. Because, well, let me try to answer your question. Do I worship a God who wants to keep me down? Tell you the kind of God I worship. I worship the kind of God who made me in his image and coded himself into humanity, came into our world to provide a basis through his death and resurrection that I could become something that I was not by creation, and that is a son of God. The notion that God is trying to keep us down is actually the original lie.
I hope you were able to hear that. You could hear it.
Broken. Kind of
Was it
broken
a little broken, really? Were you able to get the
Us
gist of it,
too.
or would you like me to?
too.
Was it well? You couldn't? Could you hear it okay, Rafaela?
Yep. Yeah.
So I'll explain what happened just in case it was hard to hear. But the question that this person is being asked is, why would you worship a God who wanted to prevent you from attaining the knowledge of good and evil? Because if you remember in the book of Genesis, God made a bunch of trees in the garden. He put Adam and Eve in the garden. And there were two trees that were very special. There was the tree of life, and there was the tree of knowledge of good and evil. And the tree of life, like all the other trees, Adam and Eve were allowed to eat. The tree of the knowledge of good and evil, they were forbidden from eating, at least for a time. So this is actually a really common criticism that comes up, that people say, okay, well, why didn't God want Adam and Eve to have the knowledge of good and evil? Why did he want them to stay dumb? And the response that the person gives is basically, well, God doesn't want to keep us down. God wants to elevate us into becoming a son or daughter of God, right? God isn't trying to hold us back. He's trying to help us flourish, which I think is in general a pretty good answer. But, or I think rather it's a good idea and it's a true idea. I don't know if it was a very good answer because I don't feel like it really addressed the question of why did God not let them eat from the fruit of the knowledge of of good and evil, right? So I would just kind of add to that answer a little bit, and I would say that um, what we have to realize is the general consensus of the church fathers is that Adam and Eve were not stupid. That's kind of a modern idea that gets kind of read into the book of Genesis. They were actually very intelligent. They were probably more intelligent than us. And the reasoning behind that is because sin is a source of ignorance, right? Sin makes us not really want to know and see the truth quite as much. Adam and Eve were sinless, at least at the start. And so with that sinlessness comes a great deal of knowledge. And they also had what Augustine called preternatural gifts and such. So they would have had very high intelligence. They were not stupid at all. So I think what Adam and Eve were being tempted with was not so much to have a knowledge of good and evil alone, but rather it was to have so much knowledge that they didn't need to depend on God at all, right? This was about having knowledge without God's help. And the reason I get to that is because when the devil tempts Adam and Eve, every single promise the devil makes is something that God was going to give Adam and Eve anyways. So, for example, the snake tells Adam and Eve, here's the secret to living forever. You just eat this apple, you just eat this fruit, and you will live forever and you won't have death. Did you all know that Adam and Eve could already live forever?
Yeah.
So here's Genesis. If we go to Genesis chapter 3, we scroll down to the Lord God said, this is after everything goes down and they get punished for their sins. God says, behold, the man has become like one of us, knowing good and evil, and now, lest he put forth his hand and take also of the tree of life and eat and live forever. Therefore, the Lord God sent him forth from the Garden of Eden to till the ground from which he was taken. So I know like that's not a complete sentence, so it might be hard to understand exactly what's being said there. But basically, that other special tree, the tree of life, already gave Adam and Eve the ability to live forever by eating the fruit of the tree. So Adam and Eve didn't just want to live forever, they wanted to live forever without God's help. They wanted to live without God assisting them. Having knowledge of good and evil wasn't just about having the knowledge of good and evil. It was about having knowledge without God's help, right? Becoming God without needing God is what was going on. Adam and Eve were seeking a life where they didn't have to trust him, didn't have to depend on him. And that is really what was sinful, right? Again, everything, God was going to give them everything anyways. He was going to make them live forever. He was going to give them deeper intimacy with him. He was going to give them greater knowledge and greater wisdom. But that's not really what they wanted. What they wanted was independence. What they wanted was a life without needing to trust or depend on a God who loves them. And that's really what the sin was. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So this belief that Adam and Eve were stupid before they bit the apple, you don't see it in the church fathers at all. They were probably actually much smarter than us. God made them rational, intelligent beings. I always like to imagine all the wisdom Adam would have gained, like naming all of the animals too. Like it's pretty cool. But okay, good. Any questions or follow-up questions or comments on that? Okay. Well, let's look at another video. I'm going to put actually the link for this video. I'm going to put it in the comments section. So if you can't hear it, you can watch it that way too. I'll put it here in the chat. There we go.
Tell me why you're
I am Jesus, and I didn't write the scriptures, I lived them.
Oh, that's awfully heretical, but okay.
Well, I heard he kept saying my name, so I wanted to show up. You know,
Okay.
I'm busy trying to save the planet from this apocalypse going on. You know what I mean? Jesus H. Christ, but just call me Josh. All right, why don't you ask me the questions? I'm sure you have plenty of them.
Okay, what's the Hebrew word for father?
Man, you know, let me tell you something. Abba.
I'm sorry?
Abba.
That's the Greek word for father.
Yeah, Greek, you know, whatever.
Tell me why you're
I
here.
am Jesus, and I.
Okay, so what
Yes, that's funny.
initial reactions? Yeah. Um, so this video has been actually shared with me a lot. It's I feel like it's kind of pitiful from both directions. Because I don't know, I feel like the guy coming up to the microphone is pretty arrogant to claim to know the mind of Jesus, and I don't know, I don't want to, maybe he's read the Bible, right? Maybe he's studied the faith. It doesn't strike me that he has. I don't know. Charlie Kirk, I don't know if you guys know who Charlie Kirk is, but he actually doesn't come across very flattering in this video either. I'm actually kind of surprised that they posted it because he's very wrong about what he says. So, the guy posing as Jesus asks, tell Charlie Kirk, ask me any question, and the thing that Charlie Kirk is trying to stump him, so he says, what's the Hebrew word for father? And this person says that it's Abba. Do you remember hearing the word Abba in the Bible?
I do.
Yes.
You do?
In
Do you remember
the
do you remember where it's used?
I think in the when he's in
In
the
John.
cross. No, when he's on the cross, I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think he does say it on the cross. I think he says, oh no, so when he's on the cross, he says Eloi. He says, my
Oh,
God.
Elohim. Yeah.
Eloi, my God, why have you forsaken me? You're really close though. It's actually when he's in the Garden of Eden.
It's around. Yeah, it's around.
It's around,
the
yeah,
passion.
it's the passion narrative somewhere, right? So that's where Jesus uses the word Abba. And that what people were speaking in Israel at the time was actually not Hebrew. What they were speaking was Aramaic. So Charlie was right in that it was not Hebrew. It was Aramaic. But then Charlie says that it was Greek, which is very wrong. It's not Greek, and it's actually not even close to Greek. The person posing as Jesus gave a better answer than Charlie gives, because at least he was giving a word that was in the same family of language. Hebrew and Aramaic are both Semitic languages, right? And so in Hebrew, the word for father is Av, and in Aramaic, it's Abba, which is basically it's the same letters almost. It's definitely the same root being used. In Greek, I think father is Patros. I don't know, does that sound familiar? Or no, it's Pateros is what it is. It's Pateros in Greek. So not even close. I don't even know. If I were Charlie Kirk, I would take this video down because it's kind of embarrassing that he wasn't just wrong, but he was like very wrong. But anyways, that video has been shared with me a few times, so I thought I would put that one up. Charlie Kirk was also in a debate recently with a Catholic, so that's another reason I wanted to post. He's a very, very proud Protestant. Yeah. Okay, so here's a video from Ricky Gervais, and I'll put this one in the chat too.
You're so narrow-minded.
No,
You don't believe in anything.
yes, I do.
Thought you were atheist.
Yeah, it doesn't mean I don't believe in anything, does it? It means I don't believe in any God.
How can you not believe in God?
Which one?
What do you mean?
Zeus, Greek God, or Ra, or Ganesh,
No, not those ones. The real one in the Bible.
Yahweh.
Just God.
Well, you know how you don't believe in all those other gods I mentioned? That's how I don't believe in yours.
How can you not believe that someone created all this, though?
Why do you believe that someone created it all?
Because it's so good. Can't just be chance, can it? What, the Big Bang? Everything came from nothing? That's impossible.
You're right. God did it.
Right.
So where did God come from?
He's always been around.
There you
You're so narrow-minded.
go. Right.
You don't believe in anything.
Does anybody know what this is from?
Is it the original Office?
That's what I was wondering.
Oh no,
I,
but he created it. I don't know if he.
I think he's in it too. I
Oh,
think
he
he
is.
I
Oh,
think he
you're right.
plays. I think he has Steve Carell's role in the original
Oh
Office
yeah.
of the boss. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if that's where this is from, but that was my guess too. So I posted this because Ricky Gervais is actually kind of he's well known for being an atheist, right? He's very public about it. He's been in some public, I don't want to say debates, but like discussions with Catholics. There's a pretty viral video of him with Stephen Colbert, and Stephen Colbert just does a terrible job defending the faith. Like he was so unprepared for that. But Ricky Gervais is he gives a lot of arguments that a lot of other atheists will give. And again, this is a skit. This is all a coordinated discussion, which is why I think it's kind of funny, actually. But I do want to address kind of what comes up. The funniest part for me is when when she says, well, the God of the Bible, and he's like, "Oh, so you mean Yahweh?" And she goes, "Just God." Like, so we actually had this discussion last time when we were talking about the Jehovah's Witness, that Yahweh is the personal name for God, right? The God we believe in. We get that name from the book of Genesis and the burning bush story and everything. But so I mean, like the basic idea behind this is, okay, we propose the existence of God because we need to explain the origin of the universe, and we say that God created the universe, and then he just goes up with, okay, well, who created God, right? And so really he's touching on a really important question, right? Which is what is the origin of everything? And the problem with his criticism is that atheists also don't have an answer for this, right? Because whatever the atheists say, if you want to say it was the Big Bang or it was a multiverse, then you still have the same question, which is, okay, well then what started the Big Bang and what started the multiverse, right? So in that sense, the atheists and the Christians are asking the same question, and even the philosophers are all just asking, where did it all come from? What started it? So the ancient Greeks used the word arche to describe the thing that originated everything else. Okay. They didn't know what it was, but they just called it the arche. Whatever it is, we're just going to call it the arche. And one thing they were able to conclude is whatever the arche is, it has to be eternal. So there were some Greeks that said, well, maybe it's water, right? Maybe it's a substance. It could just be water. Some of them said it was matter, right? It was just the material world or the atoms that make it up. They're eternal. The world is eternal, or water is eternal. There are some who thought that there was a God, right? There was an original being. But whatever it is, it has to be eternal. So this is one of the problems that the atheists or the physicists, modern physicists, are having today, is that they keep saying the universe made itself, and they're running into this problem that if the universe made itself, then the universe has to be eternal. And so the universe is not eternal. They're discovering that. And so this is where you get theories of a multiverse and things like that. The bottom line is the atheists have exactly the same problem, which is whatever you think formed the universe, you also have to explain where that thing came from. So, given that we all have the same problem, let me just talk about what the real Christian solution has been, which is that when we say God exists, that word exist is not the same word as when I say this water bottle exists or the flowers outside exist. God is a different kind of being than those kinds of beings. And I'll just use Aquinas's language here because it's useful. Aquinas refers to this entire world, all the beings in this world, as contingent beings, which means they rely on something else to exist. This water bottle was made by something else. The flowers outside were once a seed which came from other flowers. Everything in the universe, as well as the universe itself, is contingent in the sense that it depends on something else for its existence. The problem is not everything can be contingent. There has to be one thing, the arche, which is able to exist without depending on anything else for its existence. And that's where Aquinas says, okay, well, we need something to exist that doesn't rely on anything else for existence. That's what we call God. So God is different from a contingent being, which are all the beings that we're familiar with. The word that Aquinas uses to describe God's existence is necessary. So God is a necessary being, and that just means what I've described, that God's existence doesn't depend on anything else to exist. Atheists want to deny God, but the thing that they can't deny is that you need something to exist that is eternal and that doesn't need anything else to exist. And I would also just add, it makes a lot of sense to believe that that thing is rational, because the universe doesn't just exist, it exists in an ordered way. And generally, order comes from intelligence. So that's why I would argue that the most reasonable thing to believe is that there is an eternal, intelligent, necessary being that made the universe. The last thing I want to add is the Big Bang came up here, and the Big Bang tends to come up in discussions as the anti-Christian position, and it did in this video as well. There is nothing anti-Christian. Hi, Sushi. There's nothing anti-Christian about believing in the Big Bang. In fact, the Big Bang was originally proposed by a Catholic scientist and priest. His name was George Lemaitre. So the hesitancy towards the Big Bang, or this belief that the Big Bang is an atheist idea and that it is proposed in order to create an origin of the universe that doesn't involve God, all of that is false. You can believe in a Big Bang and still believe in God. You can even technically believe in a multiverse and still believe in God. I just think it's an unnecessary extra step, and I just Occam's razor that thing and say, I mean, it's not solving any problems. And you're going to end up still saying, hey, we need a necessary being to explain the origin of the multiverse. So why not just call that being God, right? So again, this is an argument that comes up a lot. That's kind of a technical, philosophical answer. Usually people like this need a little bit more than that. What they need is an example of a good Christian leader in their life that they look up to. A lot of times people who have a difficult relationship with their father end up having a difficult relationship with God. This is something that we see a lot with the new atheists, is that they all seem to have rocky relationships with their fathers in common. And that kind of creates a barrier to having a relationship with God, who is called our Heavenly Father, right? So that's all I wanted to say on that. Are there any questions or thoughts or reflections about this video? You got it.
I got it. No, I was just gonna say that, well, those arguments are very academic, intellectual, philosophical.
Yeah.
But I don't know what faith comes from actually, but I think this is another kind of dimension, when we live in God is because we have faith. And
Yeah.
faith is not intellectual, it's not academic. It's what is it? Where is it? Is in the psychological world? Is in the mental world? Is in the moral world? In the brain? In the heart? You know, it's
Yeah.
something that you cannot touch. You just
Right.
experience it. You just live it.
Yeah, I would agree. I think most people are more converted to believe in God through some sort of experience of God, right? Or an
Yeah.
example of God. For me in my life, my conversion was more intellectual. I was losing my faith because I had questions that I didn't think had answers, right? And my faith wasn't, it was just making less and less sense in my own mind. And so I actually did need a little bit of an intellectual journey for God to make sense to me again. A lot of people don't need that, or they just don't think that way, and what they need is just um, an example, either like a good example of Christ in their life, or just for God to touch their heart somehow, and that's valid too. Um, so yeah, I mean, I think I agree with you. Like a lot of people, they don't need the intellectual argument; they need to see God with their hearts, and that's what leads them to believe. I think that's kind of the point of the resurrection is Jesus is alive, and so you can go see him because he's alive. You can talk to him. You can hear him. That's what the resurrection means to us. But the question is, how do you get Ricky Gervais to have a conversation with Jesus, right? Like that's a challenge,
Absolutely.
So I think you bring up a great point. Like with every single person, if we're in evangelization mode, right, we're trying to bring someone to the Lord. One of the first questions we have to ask is, what does this person need to hear? And for some people, that's going to be an intellectual argument. For other people, it's going to be love, or it's going to be beauty, or it's going to be some example of Christ living in the world. Some people might be convinced by a miracle story or something.
Mhm.
Everybody's different. So
Yeah.
I respect that.
I respect that too.
I have a definition of faith from Hebrews 11:1.
Yep.
Faith is the realization of what is hoped for and the evidence of things not seen.
I love that passage.
Yeah.
Yeah. The translation that
Ruth.
I've heard, yeah. The translation that I've heard is also the faith is the substance of things hoped for.
Yeah. This was the New American.
Yeah, which is a good translation. It's a good translation. But yeah, thank you for sharing that. It's beautiful. Good. Any other questions?
I got my guardian angel question answered. So
That's good. Well, if you want, I can turn off the YouTube recording, and in case there's any other questions that people want to ask, I'll do that.